What does a truly successful life look like to you? Is it measured by the size of a bank account, or by the quiet dignity with which a person chooses to say goodbye? When news spread that Robert Duvall had passed away at 95, headlines focused on the legend, the awards, the films, and the remarkable longevity of a career that reshaped American cinema. Yet those who looked more closely saw something far more powerful than fame or fortune. He did not leave this world in a Beverly Hills mansion surrounded by flashing cameras and media spectacle. He died quietly on his Virginia farm, with horses grazing beyond the window and his wife, Luciana Pedraza, holding his hand. No spectacle. No red carpet farewell. Just peace. And perhaps that final scene tells us more about Robert Duvall than any role he ever played. What does it reveal about a man who spent his life portraying power, conflict, and authority on screen, yet chose stillness in his final chapter? And what might it say about the values he carried long before the cameras stopped rolling? A final request that stunned Hollywood. Within hours of the announcement, every major network carried the news. Tributes poured in from across generations of actors, directors, and audiences. Yet the family's public statement caught many off guard. There would be no grand funeral. No black-tie memorial filled with industry elites. No televised ceremony celebrating a towering icon. Instead, they asked something simple. Watch a great film. Share a story at the dinner table. Take a quiet drive through the countryside. Pause for a moment and consider that. In an age where celebrity farewells often become carefully staged public events, why would a man of Duvall's stature choose silence over ceremony? Why reject the kind of elaborate tribute most public figures might expect? Because he had spent a lifetime resisting what Hollywood tried to turn him into. Even at the height of his fame, he rarely attended lavish parties. He preferred ranch life, long conversations, and the steady rhythms of the countryside. The industry celebrated spectacle. Duvall pursued authenticity. Hollywood rewarded self-promotion. He embraced privacy. Was this humility, or something deeper, a philosophy about what truly matters? The fortune, and the surprise heir. Estimates placed his wealth between $50 and $70 million. 7 decades of steady work. More than 130 films. Royalties still flowing from some of the most celebrated projects in American cinema. But here's what many people overlooked. He had no biological children. No direct heirs in the traditional sense. So where did it all go? To the woman he met by chance in a bakery in Buenos Aires nearly 3 decades ago. The story almost sounds fictional. A legendary American actor, already famous around the world, encounters a young Argentine woman during a visit abroad. A conversation begins. Curiosity turns into connection. Connection becomes companionship. Their relationship endured a 41-year age difference, public scrutiny, and cultural distance. Yet those close to them often describe their bond as unusually grounded, built on shared interests in art, horses, and simple living. What makes a relationship endure against such odds? Was it love, timing, or a shared understanding of life beyond fame? For Duvall, this unexpected love story became one of the most revealing chapters of his life, a reminder that even a Hollywood legend remained open to surprise. From Navy discipline to acting destiny. Born January 5, 1931, in San Diego, Duvall grew up in a military household shaped by order and discipline. His father, a rear admiral, believed deeply in structure, duty, and responsibility. The family moved frequently between bases, and stability was rare. Imagine a childhood defined by constant relocation. New schools. New environments. New expectations. How does such a life shape a young mind? For Duvall, it cultivated observation. He learned to watch people closely, their mannerisms, voices, and emotional patterns. This habit would later become central to his acting method. As a young man, he struggled academically. Drama classes were not initially a calling. They were simply a practical choice that allowed him to stay enrolled and avoid being drafted during the Korean War. Yet something changed when he stepped onto a stage. The restless student found focus. The quiet observer found voice. The uncertainty of youth gave way to purpose. After serving in the Army, he moved to New York and studied under renowned teacher Sanford Meisner at the neighborhood playhouse. His classmates included Dustin Hoffman, Gene Hackman, and James Caan. 4 young men. shared apartments, empty refrigerators, big dreams. They struggled together, working odd jobs, borrowing money, and auditioning endlessly. Their early years were marked not by glamour but by persistence and uncertainty. Can you imagine sitting in that cramped New York flat, knowing that each of them would eventually reshape American cinema? At the time, they were simply struggling actors trying to pay rent. What separates those who eventually succeed from those who give up? Talent alone, or the refusal to abandon a dream? The role that changed everything. In 1962, Duvall made his film debut as Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird. He barely spoke. He appeared for only minutes. Yet his quiet presence was unforgettable. The role revealed something unique about Duvall's approach, his ability to convey depth without words. Where many actors sought attention, he mastered stillness. One person who noticed was director Francis Ford Coppola. Years later, Coppola would cast him as Tom Hagen in The Godfather. Duvall earned just $36,000 for the role, modest even then. But what he delivered was timeless. Tom Hagen wasn't loud or theatrical. He was measured, controlled, indispensable, a character defined by restraint. The performance earned Duvall his first Academy Award nomination and introduced audiences to a new kind of screen presence, power expressed through calm. He reprised the role in The Godfather Part 2. But when it came time for The Godfather Part 3, he walked away.
Why?
Because the studio offered him far less compensation than his co-star Al Pacino. He did not object to Pacino earning more. He objected to what he saw as a lack of respect. And he said no. That decision cost him millions. Let me ask you, how many people at the height of their earning power would walk away from a paycheck on principle? How often do we compromise values for opportunity? Duvall chose dignity over profit, choosing craft over cash. After the Mafia epics, he could easily have chased similar roles for easy money. Instead, he chose risk. In Apocalypse Now, again under Coppola's direction, he created the unforgettable Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore, a character both charismatic and terrifying. The performance became cultural shorthand for cinematic intensity. Yet fame never appeared to be his driving force. He sought characters that revealed the complexity of human nature, flawed individuals searching for meaning. That pursuit reached a peak in Tender Mercies, where he portrayed a broken country singer seeking redemption. Duvall insisted on singing his own songs, immersing himself completely in the role. The performance earned him the Academy Award for Best Actor. And yet, when he accepted the Oscar, he spoke more proudly about approval from country legends like Johnny Cash than about the Academy itself. Why would validation from fellow artists matter more than Hollywood's highest honor? Because for Duvall, authenticity always outweighed recognition. A man who chose simplicity. Despite immense success, Duvall lived far from the typical Hollywood lifestyle. His Virginia farm became a sanctuary, a place where the rhythms of nature replaced the pressures of celebrity. He raised horses, studied Argentine tango, and spent long evenings in quiet conversation. Visitors often described the atmosphere as calm, almost meditative. What does it mean for a man who portrayed powerful figures, military leaders, crime advisors, and complex antiheroes, to seek such simplicity in real life? Perhaps the contrast reveals a deeper truth. The roles were intense because his personal life was grounded. He once remarked that acting required emotional exposure, and solitude helped restore balance. In a world obsessed with constant attention, he valued reflection. Is solitude a form of strength? Or is it simply clarity about what matters most? Love, time, and perspective. His relationship with Luciana Pedraza brought renewed vitality in his later years. She introduced him to Argentine culture, music, and dance. Together they supported charitable projects and artistic endeavors. Observers frequently noted how their partnership reflected mutual respect rather than celebrity hierarchy. They worked together, traveled together, and built a shared life away from industry expectations. How often do public figures maintain such grounded relationships? What allows love to thrive beyond fame and fortune? For Duvall, love appeared less like spectacle and more like companionship, a shared journey marked by patience and understanding. The meaning of legacy. When discussing Duvall's legacy, critics often point to his extraordinary range, his commitment to realism, and his influence on generations of actors. Yet his personal choices reveal an equally compelling legacy. He valued principle over profit, privacy over publicity, craft over celebrity, peace over spectacle. In an era that often celebrates visibility above substance, his life posed a quiet challenge to cultural norms. What remains after the applause fades? Awards gather dust. Headlines disappear. What endures are values, relationships, and the impact one leaves on others. Robert Duvall's final act reflected the same restraint that defined his performances. No dramatic exit. No elaborate farewell. Only a quiet room, a peaceful landscape, and the presence of someone he loved. It raises a profound question. If life itself is a story, how would we choose to write its final chapter? Would we seek attention or meaning? Recognition or peace? Fame or fulfillment? His final request, to watch a film, share a memory, and appreciate life's simple moments, was not merely an instruction. It was a philosophy. It revealed a man who understood that the closing scene of a life does not need grand gestures to carry weight. Sometimes, the most powerful endings are the quietest ones. A reminder that success may not be defined by what we accumulate, but by how we live and how we leave. And perhaps that is the most powerful role Robert Duvall ever played. Not a character on screen, but a life lived with conviction, humility, and quiet grace. So let me ask you one last question. When your own story is told, what will define it? The noise of achievement or the silence of peace? What does that tell you? Perhaps he valued authenticity over applause. Perhaps he believed that truth, not spectacle, gives a life its meaning. His personal favorite role came in Lonesome Dove, where he played Captain Augustus McCrae, a character remembered for his quiet strength, dry humor, and unwavering loyalty. The role mirrored something essential within Duvall himself, a steady presence, grounded in principle, guided by an inner compass rather than external validation. What draws an actor to a character? And what does it reveal when that character reflects the actor's own spirit? Then came a gamble that would define his artistic courage. He spent years developing The Apostle, investing millions of his own money when studios refused to back it. Many believed the project was too risky, too personal, too unconventional to succeed. Yet Duvall persisted, driven not by commercial certainty but by artistic truth. The film ultimately succeeded and earned him yet another Academy Award nomination. This wasn't a man chasing headlines. He was chasing truth. And what does it mean to risk everything for truth? How many of us would invest our own resources, our reputation, and our time in a vision others dismiss? Duvall's choices suggest an answer. Fulfillment comes not from playing it safe, but from remaining faithful to one's convictions. The farm instead of the mansion. While other stars bought sprawling Malibu estates and built lives in the glare of constant attention, Duvall chose a different path. He purchased farmland in Virginia's Hunt Country, hundreds of rolling acres near the plains. The land stretched beneath open skies, framed by the distant silhouette of the Blue Ridge Mountains, where seasons painted the hills in shifting shades of green, gold, and amber. The property once belonged to a prominent sports owner, but Duvall transformed it into something deeply personal. He turned barns into tango halls filled with music and movement. He raised horses and spent long afternoons riding through fields washed in sunlight. He watched sunsets that required no audience, no applause. There, the rhythm of life slowed. There, success was measured not by awards, but by moments. Imagine the contrast, the flashing cameras of Hollywood replaced by the whisper of wind across open land. The roar of premieres exchanged for the quiet creak of wooden floors in a country home. Why would a man with global recognition choose rural stillness over industry glamour? Because he never mistook fame for fulfillment. He and Luciana even co-owned a boutique hotel in Argentina, embracing a culture rich in dance and tradition. Together they founded a children's charity, extending their influence beyond entertainment into compassion and service. Their life was not centered on visibility but on intention. They built a world defined not by status, but by meaning. And it invites reflection. What environments shape our souls? Are we drawn toward noise because we fear silence, or because we have forgotten how to listen? 4 marriages, 1 lasting love. Duvall married 4 times. His early relationships, like many shaped by the relentless demands of ambition, faded beneath long hours on set and the pressures of a rising career. He once described one divorce simply, "Things burn out." There was no bitterness in the statement, only acceptance, a recognition that some chapters end so others may begin. Then, in the late 1990s, an unexpected moment changed everything. He entered a bakery in Buenos Aires after missing the chance to buy flowers elsewhere. Inside, he met Luciana Pedraza. She was decades younger and, at first, did not recognize him. Their connection was not born from fame or expectation but from genuine curiosity. They discovered they shared the same birthday, January 5th. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps life occasionally writes its own poetic scenes. They married in 2005 and built a partnership rooted in shared passions, especially tango. For Duvall, dance became more than a hobby. It was an expression of connection, discipline, and emotional honesty. Through movement, they communicated what words often could not. They considered adoption but never had children. Instead, they invested their energy in each other, in their work, and in the communities they supported. Their bond reflected something increasingly rare, a relationship defined not by public display but by private devotion. And so, when Duvall passed away, his estate, by most accounts under Virginia law, would flow to his surviving spouse. Yet unlike so many celebrity estates, there were no legal battles. No public disputes. No family members contesting the will. Silence. And that silence speaks volumes. What does it say about a life when even its final arrangements unfold without conflict? Does peace at the end reflect peace throughout the journey? What truly made them cry? When we hear about celebrity fortunes, conversations often center on money. Who inherited what, how much was left behind, how wealth was divided. But those closest to Duvall did not grieve the distribution of assets. They grieved the absence of the man. The empty chair at the farmhouse table. The quiet presence on the porch at dusk. The echo of music in the tango hall inside the barn. These were the losses that could not be measured. Let me ask you something deeper. At the end of your life, what would matter more? Who receives your possessions, or who feels your absence? Duvall once said he treasured a typed letter from Marlon Brando more than his Oscar. Think about that. 7 Academy Award nominations. 1 win. Decades of acclaim recognized across the world. And yet a personal note from a respected peer, a gesture of connection, respect, and friendship, held greater value than the golden statue celebrated by millions. That perspective cannot be purchased. It must be cultivated through a lifetime of reflection and experience. What do we truly value? And when stripped of recognition, titles, and wealth, what remains? Tributes from giants. After his passing, fellow actors and collaborators offered tributes that revealed the depth of his influence. Al Pacino called him a born actor, recognizing a talent that seemed effortless yet was built upon discipline and insight. Francis Ford Coppola mourned him as essential to his creative journey, a collaborator whose presence shaped cinematic history. Viola Davis praised the depth and authority he brought to every role, noting how he transformed characters into living, breathing human beings. These words came from giants of their craft, individuals who understood excellence at the highest level. Their praise was not merely professional courtesy, it was recognition of a rare authenticity. Yet perhaps the most meaningful tribute was the simplest. No ceremony. No spectacle. Just stories shared and films watched. A life remembered not through extravagance, but through connection. Is this not what we all desire in the end, to be remembered through shared moments rather than public displays? The real inheritance. Yes, Robert Duvall built a fortune estimated in the tens of millions. His career spanned decades, his performances shaped generations, and his achievements secured his place in history. But money was never the centerpiece of his story. His real inheritance was something far more enduring, a model of how to live. Proof that you can choose principle over profit. Choose privacy over publicity. Choose purpose over applause. And still build something extraordinary. His life challenges a culture obsessed with visibility. It suggests that meaning grows not in the spotlight, but in the quiet spaces where values are lived rather than proclaimed. As we reflect on his journey, perhaps the more important question isn't about who inherited his wealth. It's this. Are we living in a way that the people around us would miss us for who we were, not for what we owned? A life written with intention. Robert Duvall's final act was not dramatic. It was deliberate. A quiet farm. A faithful partner. A lifetime of work done on his own terms. He did not chase the world's expectations. He shaped his own path. He understood that a meaningful life requires intention, the courage to define success personally rather than accept society's definition. The fortune remained behind. But the tears, they weren't about money. They were about a man who proved that greatness doesn't require noise, and that a well-lived life is the only legacy that truly endures. And perhaps this is where his story meets our own. What are we building today that will remain tomorrow? What relationships are we nurturing? What values are we embodying? What moments are we choosing to treasure? Are we crafting a life that reflects our deepest convictions, or merely reacting to the demands of the world around us? If life is indeed a story, then each day is a page waiting to be written. Robert Duvall chose to write his with restraint, authenticity, and quiet courage. His final chapter was not an ending, but a message, a reminder that fulfillment lies not in the applause of the crowd, but in the peace of a life lived with purpose. And so the question remains, lingering long after the curtain falls. When your story reaches its final scene, what will endure? The echo of your achievements, or the memory of your presence?